Kenyan legislators have endorsed the country's trade deal with the United Kingdom, despite facing pushback from members of parliament and farmers over secrecy in the deal's finer details. The deal, a post-Brexit treaty expected to provide a direct deal between London and Nairobi, aims to liberalise 82.6% of Kenya's trade with the UK progressively until 2053. The ratification of the trade deal will see Kenya maintain its duty and quota-free access for its agricultural products. Nairobi signed the Strategic Economic Partnership Agreement, it's the EPA, with London on behalf of the East African Community Bloc in December last year. It's estimated the annual value of trade between the two countries will sit at over $638 million to $820 million. Lawyer and executive director of a Nairobi-based advocacy group, Econews Africa, Edgar Onari, is on Zoom from Nairobi, Kenya, to share his thoughts on this matter. Thanks very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is this a good deal for Kenya to have this arrangement with the United Kingdom?
It is not a good deal. We feel that this deal has been rushed and it is going to bring challenges to the industries that are struggling in Kenya to survive within their own markets.
So what is problematic? Is it that you don't know what's in the deal, or some of the details that have come through don't quite sit well with you?
Some of the details that have come through don't quite sit well with us. I'll give you an example. We are basically banning the use of export taxes, which are used to protect industries such as the leather industry and the nut processing industry. We have the infant industry clause that is limited in its use because it's only applicable for 15 years. I could go on a raft of number of things that are contained in that deal, but basically we are saying that the content and scope of that deal is beyond what Kenya should have committed to.
But there must be something in it for Kenya. All the lawmakers seem to have signed it off. What is it that they are seeing that you're not seeing, or vice versa?
Well, to tell you the truth, Kenya exports about $400 million worth of goods to the United Kingdom. And you have products such as tea, you have products such as pineapples, you have products such as tobacco, but most of these products are actually exported by the major multinational companies. So it is these multinational companies whose interests are being protected in this deal, including the export of avocados to the United Kingdom.
So what will be the effect? Let's start with farmers in Kenya.
Yes, so in terms of farming, a number of products have been liberalized over a 25-year period of time, and they are going to be threatened. I'll give you an example. One of the key things they say is they are going to liberalize poultry in the nature of Gallus domesticus, which is basically chicken. So they're going to liberalize chicken, and we are going to have cheap imports of chicken coming in from the United Kingdom, which gives a lot of domestic support to its farmers in the nature of subsidies that are not punishable because they've been put into the green box of the WTO.
All right, so this seems then to be something that the Brits, the UK, may have then authored more than Kenya did. But why would Kenya give up so much?
I think what Kenya has done is that it has caved into the pressure by the multinational exporters who account for the largest exports to the United Kingdom, and decided that it is better to protect this deal so that they secure their exports duty-free, quota-free to the United Kingdom, while punishing everyone else who is going to be affected by this deal.
Is there anything that you can do? I mean, once it's ratified in Parliament, it's law, isn't it?
Well, we have gone to court with the Kenya Small-Scale Farmers Forum. Econews Africa and Kenya Small-Scale Farmers Forum have gone to court to seek an interpretation under the Treaty Making and Ratification Act to try and prove that the process of public participation, which is a requirement under the Constitution, was flawed, and therefore the treaty cannot be valid because the process that was supposed to be followed was not followed.
Are all the farmers feeling like you, or some of them said, look, this actually might work for us. Is there general agreement outside of Parliament on which way to go forward?
Naturally, the big farmers who export to the United Kingdom have no problem with this deal because they are covered and their interests are secured. But for the Kenya Small-Scale Farmers Forum, they are indeed aggrieved by this deal and are willing to go to the hilt to defend their interests in this case.
How different are the arrangements compared to when Britain was part of the EU and you were exporting to the EU on EU rules?
Indeed, that's an important question. I can tell you for sure that the deal is a copy-paste of the East African Community European Union Economic Partnership Agreement. Now, the problem we have with that is that the 82.6% that has been opened is using old data that was Britain being part of the EU. Now that Britain has come out of the EU, we need to recalculate the data and consider, are we going to open up 82.6% or are we going to reduce the level of commitment in this case?
So what is the situation with the rest of Europe? Current arrangements stay in place and they'll be running in parallel, or is this a question of Britain competing with the EU for the East African space?
Well, since Britain left the European Union, the East African community is a very important market, and Kenya anchors that market for Britain. So basically, Britain is trying to compete and get market access to the East African community for its product and secure a long-term trade deal with the region.
Would you be better off with the EU, or their rules also have to be looked at?
Well, we are better off with the EU. It's a bigger market. So we are better off dealing with a bigger market than a small market and making all these commitments that are going to go further beyond what we intend to liberalize.
All right, so you're very concerned about this, but with a few tweaks, could it work, or are you saying that this thing has to be rewritten from scratch?
It has to be rewritten from scratch, because the whole idea of copy-pasting the East African Community European Union deal is a bad intention, because it means that we are basically copy-pasting agreements whose commitments we have not carefully analyzed and understood the implications to the nation.
And I suppose the challenge as well is that some goods are tariff-free and others aren't. And it's a question of getting your important goods, important exports on this list. But the reverse is also true, isn't it? If your exempted goods...
You're breaking off.
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
All right. I was just saying that the issue with some of these trade deals is that some goods are exempt and others aren't. And I suppose that when British goods come into the country and they're exempt, they're competing with local products.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right. I was just saying, is there a danger, especially with the way that things have been set up, with some goods being exempted from tariffs and others not, that you may have goods coming in from the UK that will compete with local goods in Kenya?
Yes, there's a real danger. I'll give you an example. The Kenya Waste Recyclers Association has submitted a memorandum to Parliament because the tariff lines for paper products coming from the EU are going to be zero from day one of the implementation of the agreement. And this is dangerous because the industry supports about 88,000 jobs. So you're going to mean that you're going to basically destroy the livelihoods. And these are the people who work in the informal sector. They collect waste paper and give it up the value chain until it gets to one of the biggest paper recyclers in the country. So this is going to mean that you're going to threaten the livelihoods of these people. And this is a very serious affront to the rights of livelihoods in the country.
So how have government and parliamentarians explained this to farmers and producers?
What has happened is that this deal has been rushed. They gave initially, when they submitted the treaty to Parliament for public participation, they did not include key annexes that were part of the agreement. And when these annexes were finally submitted, they only gave 5 days for public participation. Now, this is a 700-page monstrosity, and you're supposed to comb through it and give feedback within 5 days. It is not sufficient time for stakeholders to comment on it.
All right, so what will happen next?
Well, the instruments of ratification are going to be implemented by the Cabinet Secretary. But meanwhile, Econews Africa and the Kenya Small Scale Farmers Forum have gone to court to quash the implementation of the agreement and declare the treaty null and void.
Are there any discussions about new arrangements with the European Union at this time?
Well, Kenya has ratified the European Union East African Community Economic Partnership Agreement, even though it's not in force because it's only Kenya and Rwanda that have ratified it. But that is the arrangement that we have with the European Union. We are still exporting to the EU duty-free, quota-free, because we at least are covered under what we call Annex 1 countries, countries that have met the threshold for treatment of better conditions by the European Union.
What are your fellow East African community countries saying about this deal with the UK?
Well, it's going to break up regional integration. And I know people can argue and say that, we need to talk about variable geometry where countries can make commitments that are different from one another. But this is going to break up East African community regional integration because countries are making commitments that are not synonymous with the requirements of regional integration as contained under Article 37 of the Customs Union Management Protocol.
All right, okay. Certainly a story that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Thanks very much indeed for giving us an update on the situation. It's good talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.